Welcome to Worth It. I'm your host, LANI BUESS, on this interview and training network, HYPNO 24/7 Live. And before I introduce my guest today, I encourage you to check out all the other shows on this network, such as Kaz Riley's Trancing in the Sheets, a show all about sexual freedom, issues like consent, intimacy, sexual dysfunction. Check out Greg Beckett's show, The Time to Get Unstuck, where him and his guest ponder the meaning of one word and have a kind of a really involved conversation around that word. And also check out Paul Ramsey's Fat Hypnotist, his chronicle of his weight loss journey over time, where he interviews a bunch of people discussing weight and issues surrounding that. So today I have my boss, Cristina Dam. She is the owner of two spiritual centers in Los Angeles called Liberate Hollywood and Liberate Emporium. She's also a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, energy healer, business coach, a lot of things.
That sounds like a lot. It's out there.
And she holds master's degrees in educational foundations and psychology. And she's a certified addiction treatment specialist. A lot of things. She has her own movie production company.
We can say
she has a lot of things. She's much younger than me and has a laundry list of things she's done. I feel like her intro is just makes other people feel bad about themselves. So what we're talking today about is imposter phenomenon. Phenomenon. And I know as a business coach, you mentioned you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they possibly have that issue. So
possibly a lot of people do, especially I see it a lot with entrepreneurs specifically, because you're always trying to get to where you're wanting to be at and you're never quite there. And then there's the fear that creeps in that says, can I really do this, or am I really worth it, or do I really have the skill set or the talent that's needed to, move this shit forward? And a lot of entrepreneurs is a lot about convincing other people to join your cause and stand beside you. And so, it's almost like this overselling and then wondering if you're going to be under delivering, right? And so I see that in the biggest aspect with entrepreneurs specifically. And it's interesting because people that are like executives in different corporations and stuff, I work with a lot of C-level executives, they don't seem to have it, and so it's like this interesting, they moved up in the company or that, but their confidence and their congruence with what they think they can produce and what they do produce seem to be pretty much more in alignment, where the entrepreneur seems to always be fearful that they're not going to be able to pull something off.
So what do you think the difference is between those two?
One's risk taker.
Entrepreneur, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Because they have to be like their own boss, and they're actually, like you mentioned, they're like pushing their own cause.
Yeah, well, one person is helping push somebody else's cause forward, and they're, have to have this beautiful skill set and everything to help support, but they're, at the end of the day, they're not held reliable for everything. And so the ship doesn't stop with them. So, they can do their work and feel like a level of more peace or ease, whereas the entrepreneur, they're pulling everybody else in to jump aboard, and they're taking these risks and wondering, are they actually going to pan out?
Right. And they have other people to consider in that process. Right? They hire employees and things like that, so they're not really thinking about themselves.
Yeah, and that's where I think the fear comes into, is look at, there's these 10, 20, 100,000 people and I'm taking this risk of steering this business in this direction or creating this product, and I've gotten all these people to jump aboard this ship or this invention or this thing, and is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work?
Oh God. So they take on a lot of responsibility. They're under a lot of pressure.
They're under a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of unknowns. And so the fear, I think, and that's where the imposter syndrome comes into place, is that fear of, am I who I say I am, and can I do what I say I can do, or am I just an imposter?
Wow. So how do you work with people to reconcile that?
It's, it all stems down to, pulling people back into their confidence and trust. And then it's really getting them to let go of fear. Because imposter syndrome, at least from my perspective, it's circled around fear. And so there's this fear that something's going to go wrong, something's going to fall apart. They're not going to be able to stand up to what other people perceive them to be. And there's so much of their world is based on other people's opinions, and it's almost like this outside perspective. And so a lot of them are disassociated from their internal self. So one of the things is to reassociate them internally, so they're the ones looking out of their eyes and looking through into the world, instead of taking that stance of wondering what this person over here is perceiving me to be, and am I lining up for them. They're not living who they are.
Right. So they're externalizing a lot of their values, like outside of themselves.
Yeah, and their perception gets stuck outside of their self, and that's why there's this fear of imposter syndrome that pops up, because am I going to fill in the blank for these people? Am I living up to their standard? Am I being able to live up to the standard that I presented to them, right? And so pulling people back into their self. And, there's some great NLP techniques to do that, hypnosis, pulling people and saying, okay, how do we create you back into your body, back into your perception? And then how do we eradicate fear and allow you to know that there are no mistakes and there is no failure? There's only this ability to learn. And at the end of the day, we can't be responsible for everybody else.
So question, can we really eradicate fear?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like that propels people forward a little bit, like their fear of something to a motivation factor for some people.
Yes, but then there's away from motivation and towards motivation, and one is far more powerful than the other. And so when, yes, away from motivation, which is away from fear, motivating me to move because a tiger is chasing me, right? Or because of the situation, I'm going to propel forward, but it's going to be unsustainable. It's going to be a fast jump forward, and then there's going to be a burnout period, because it wasn't for something and towards something. It was to get away from something.
Yeah, makes sense. So for that entrepreneur that has certain fears, right? One being like they might fail at their venture. And so say they do fail, so their imposter phenomenon feelings might feel very valid to them. So how do you work how do you work around that issue for them?
Well, we're all going to fail.
Yeah.
Right? Failing is learning. And when we stop putting so much emphasis on what our false meaning of failure indicates, like people think failure is some kind of like horrible thing, but if we change that word in that context to say learning opportunity, right? And so it's picking up the pieces. Okay, so yes, people get validated, and then what happens is that they start to form different forms of trauma, right? And then that trauma continues to pile on and pile on and pile on. So it's like, how do we peel away that? And it's going in and it's reinforcing all of the times. It's almost like a parts integration. You can use that technique for those that know it. It's this one aspect of yourself and this other aspect of yourself that are both really trying to achieve the same thing. Because in that case, protection mechanisms will form, right? So I am an imposter. Look at, I failed. So now there's this barrier of saying, I'm going to protect myself and I'm not going to try again. I'm not going to go after that next goal or dream. I'm not going to pick myself up and get back on that bike and try to learn how to ride it. And so this fear and this defensive mechanism starts to pile on, right? And it creates this aspect of oneself that's saying, I'm really doing this to help you, right? Because if you avoid this, then you're not going to get hurt again. You're not going to be seen as a loser or failure, or whatever you've attributed that context to. And then, but at the end of that, and what the real meaning of that is, when you chunk it up and you say, well, what's the purpose of that, and what's the intention behind it? You find that individual, or that aspect of yourself, or that individual is really trying to find your own happiness, joy, love, satisfaction, whatever those higher, feelings and states are. And then there's this aspect of you that wants you to be courageous and wants you to try these different things because there are these pulls inside of you. There's these passions, there's these insight, there's this, whatever. And that's wanting love. And so if you can do like a parts integration for somebody and make them realize that both of these aspects of their self really are wanting the same thing and pull that together and realign these elements, then the person realizes, I don't need to behave this way. There's a choice and an option because there's also this option and there's many options in between.
Right. Nice. So are you finding with those entrepreneurs, are you finding that even though they kind of, I don't even know if I want to say it, they fail, but do typical entrepreneurs have that kind of resilience and perseverance, like qualities within them?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I mean, it's like, I always say the entrepreneur takes the life route of the self-imposed bipolar disorder.
What's that? Don't offend all people with bipolar disorder.
No, but I mean, like, it's like there's highs and lows that they like, they're on this up and then they're on this down. They're excited and passionate and things are moving forward and then things are falling apart and it's like do 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 do. Right. And you have to have some type of resilience to be able to continue to get on that path for every fall that you make or every disappointment or offset that happens. And I mean, and when you think about it, I don't want to just say entrepreneurs as business creators. It's even people that are having their own private practice as hypnotherapists or healers or coaches or therapists, or even people that are having their own private practices for other service industries, actors, writers, all of these people that they are the motivation factor for creating the elements of their life. And they have to continue, whether it's an actor or an actress, like going to an audition, they're going to get turned down a lot. And there's going to be this energy of pulling them forward. And then there's going to be a setback if they didn't get the thing that they really wanted. And, and it's going to bounce like this, and you have to keep on going. But it's finding tools to keep you going, right? So that you can keep on propelling yourself further up instead of feeling like it goes like this and like this and like this and like this, and then some people burn out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So it's kind of finding that almost like mental, emotional balance with it all,
Yeah.
Stability in your brain.
Well, it's stability, and keep on reminding yourself of the passion. And that's why it's so important to, work towards eradicating the imposter syndrome, because that just fills a person's mind with fears and doubt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about any time, and if those that are watching, any time that you've had an element of imposter syndrome where, it's this negative self-talk, I'm not going to be okay, or I'm not good enough, I'm not this, and what if they find out that I'm really, this fraud, and, that's not conducive to supporting an energy of encouragement in your mind. That's actually detrimental to your mental state and to propel you, forward. So it's like you have to really start to believe in yourself again. And that is an aspect of not believing in yourself. It's also really tied into perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
And so part of it is realizing that things don't have to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
And perfectionism is a state of control, right? So then you have to work with somebody on the fear of loss of control, right? Can they be out of control? Is it okay for them to be out of control? And then there's, these are aspects when you're jumping into somebody's mind through like hypnosis. It's like, okay, these are some of the points that you need to hit, because it's not the imposter syndrome, it's these underlying roots, the perfectionism, the fear of loss of control, the lack of self-belief, the fear that's an impending doom, that this ability to not be okay if they fail. Like, these are the things that need to be addressed. And the result is, the aspect that's presenting itself is the imposter syndrome, but it's these kind of roots that you need to.
And there's a lot of roots. There's like a lot of different roots going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. what I find interesting is that I found out that 70% of the population experience this at least one point in their life, this phenomenon. But there's like that 30% that don't at all. So what do you think the difference is that's making the difference? Do you think it's rooted in that like really strong belief system about yourself, and then having that kind of like perseverance, resilience, and all those different things, and the confidence? Is it like all those wrapped up? Somebody kind of just like possesses that.
It's so hard to say that there's so many different aspects to the like axes of your life. But I'd say that, somebody that, goes back to programming, if everything is programming, whether, you can't say 100% blaming parents or not parents or those kind of things, because even if people have the most supportive parents, but they don't encourage in different ways, but did the person, when they were growing up as a child, did they continue to pull themselves forward when they had disappointments? Did they continue to move forward and believe in themselves? Was it okay and acceptable for them to mess up, to make a mistake, to fail? And if you look at that, and those were the conditionings in childhood, elementary school, middle school kind of aspect, that's going to be the carried factor for them in adulthood. But if that child or that individual was really down on themselves, if they messed up and got a couple questions wrong and then multiple choice, if they got a paper back and it had red ink all over it, if they didn't get picked in a sports team or whatnot, and they stopped playing that sport, all of these different things are like, okay, did you keep going? Like a good example of is like Michael Jordan didn't make the 8th grade team for basketball, and he said, I'm going to practice every day for the summer, and I'm going to go back and try out in my 9th grade year. So the opposite could have happened to many people, where they would have said, I didn't make it, I shouldn't play basketball, I'm not going to try. He didn't make the team. He went out and practiced, and he became one of the world's best basketball players of all time. So there's like this push in saying, okay, it isn't failure, it's feedback, it's momentum to pull myself back and say, I'm going to move forward. And some people have that innately and say, this is an energy that I know I can, and I believe in myself, and I will, and I'm going to prove it and show it. And then there's people that say, ooh.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably the difference.
Interesting. So you were kind of giving some possible solutions to, like integrating parts and things like that. Anything else you want to leave us with? Possible solutions to help people with this endeavor?
Well, are these like, do you want solutions for like hypnotherapists to use on clients, or individuals to use on themselves?
Individuals to use on themselves.
Okay. So one of the things is like, okay, so the microcosm and macrocosm. So how you do one thing is how you kind of do everything. And I say that because it's in the simple little details, in the little steps, that are going to transform into the major things, right? And so I say that one of the things is that if there's a lack of congruence within yourself, or a belief in yourself, it's how do you start to journal or make lists of intentions and goals for yourself, and then actually stick by them and check them off. And this can be as simple as, making your bed every morning. It can be these different little, like, I've said I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this for an outing, a gathering, a task for one of the projects for your company or your project, or whatever the case may be. And you actually start to check things off, okay? Because one of the things is that gets in people's heads is, I'm not going to be able to do this or perform this or this, and I'm a fraud, and I'm this. But there's elements that kind of weave in of feeling like you're a fraud if every time you tell yourself that you're going to do something and then you don't follow through with it, right? And so I say that this can be simple things. This can be, I'm going to go to the gym every morning. Like, we're talking about that. I'm pulling myself back into the gym, But this can be any little tiny thing. And as the more that you condition yourself, and then I also go into the next step of saying, take a moment and write the 10 things that you enjoy most about yourself in your life. Little things, okay? They can be a big thing on occasion, but mostly like little things. Like if you love your coffee, or if you love it, like a tea a certain way, if you love getting a massage or this or that, little things, you know, and saying, can I show myself that love? Because one of these verticals that we're healing, one of these roots that we're plucking out is self-love, right? And so it's like, can you light a candle just because it makes you feel good? Can you cook yourself a nice dinner even if it's just you? Can you allow yourself to do some of these things that you love instead of preventing yourself and holding them as like this token that's a reward center down the line, right? And so that is one of the things. Those are like two simple things. And then, you know, I like to go through and look at what things in your life did you fail at in the beginning, and how did you allow yourself to continue to do it, to show that there's been times in your life. I mean, I think every single person that's probably watching this, if you learn to ride a bike, you didn't ride it perfectly the first time,
right?
You know, and you fell off, you scraped your knees, you know, the moment that those training wheels came off, but then you kept on getting back on. And then now, even as an adult, you can get on a bike that you haven't rode in 5 years, 10 years, and you can find that balance point because you continue to, you know, move forward and try. And so what things have you done, right? And then, you know, you can do some self meditation and visualization of pulling yourself back from your perspective, okay? And you know, I like using like your phone as like a voice recorder, the voice recorder memo, and you can allow yourself to say a meditation in a very peaceful state of pulling yourself into yourself. And there's some great ones probably on YouTube and everything like that, but you want to pull yourself back into your focus, right, in your position. And you know, there's so many little things that people can do.
Thanks, Christina. That's good stuff. And I'm curious, where can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about you and what you do?
Let's see. You can find me at Liberate Hollywood or Liberate Emporium. There's I'm one of those people that doesn't have an Instagram, and I'm never on my Facebook, so those are probably like bad. But through one of the stores, you can find me. You could go on there. You'll see my bio or different things. You can email one of the shops, and all the emails are on there as well.
Yeah, so it's at liberatehollywood.com.
Yeah.
And liberateemporium.com.
Yep.
Pretty easy. Thanks for your time, Christina.
All right, that's it.
That's it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for watching this episode of Worth It. And if you're wondering where you can learn more about me, well, I'm a hypnotist, NLP practitioner, and energy healer based in Hollywood, California. You can book a session with me at the shop I work at by going to liberatehollywood.com. But if you're out of the state, I do work through Zoom. And you can find more about me on my website, LANIBUESS.com. That's LANIBUESS.com. Feel free to email me at change@LANIBUESS.com, or find me on Facebook at Coach Lani B, or Instagram at Lani_B_change. And check out my YouTube channel, Lani Buess, where you'll find a bunch of videos to watch. And if you want to join the Facebook group for this very show, go to facebook.com/groups/worthitshow. Thanks again for watching this episode. Feel free to email me to give me feedback on how you're loving it. And again, just remember, you're worth it. Until next time.